to introduce to you again Apostolic Brother Gregory Holsapple, always with a message that's right on. And so, Gregory, are you ready?
I am ready, brother.
Father, touch him with the coal, the hot coal. Touch his lips. Give him a great anointing, even for our little group today. And we thank you. Okay, brother, take it away.
All right. Shalom, everyone, and welcome. I just want to give a praise to. I just want to thank Yahweh that still here. We're still here. And before I get started, I want to pray also for Brother Jackson and that procedure before I forget and get to the end and go to talking. So if you would join with me, that Father Yahweh, we ask that you would be with this brother, that you would touch him, you would be with those doctors' hands and that procedure, that they would get that.
Yeah.
And it would be quick. That, Father, we need him, Father. We need him for these leadership meetings, for these things that we want him to see exactly what he prayed for. That, Father, that he could see these things going forward, these things that you're going to bless, that you're going to do with all these miracles, all these. We just can't see them with our own human eyes, but we know what's going to happen. We see all these mountains that you're going to move, that we can just be a part of, Father. So we look forward to your beautiful way of doing things. And we just ask for your healing power. You would touch each and everyone here. And we thank you for these things, Father. Just like you said, you would anoint my lips and your word would go forth and not come back void, as you have said. So be it.
Amen.
All right. So today we're going to go over more than a conqueror. I think I talked to you before about being a Desert Storm veteran and being into Desert Storm and these things. And today I would like to go over some verses and some things about being in Afghanistan, the untold story of Afghanistan, if you would, that many times we see these soldiers, and sometimes you see them, they are on the streets, they are in places where they should not be. But with all that being said, I would like to give you a little look into some of these things that happen and put this together with scripture. So many times I think there's a fine line there when we go into David and Goliath and these things, that we believe these stories and we love these stories, but somehow we come to today and we think we're supposed to be this church mouse, if you will, that we don't say things, we don't do things, we don't get too carried away with it. Well, with all that being said, we are never broken. We should never be. We go from life to life. Oh, death, where is thy sting? But, so a lot of that comes into, I believe, the battlefield as well when we see these things happening. And I want to play a few things here and kind of get your attention on. I was in Alpha 37 in Hawaii, of all places. Now, to start off, I thought I'd already been to Desert Storm. I'd already been to Bosnia. Seemed like every time I went someplace, they would send me to somewhere else, and usually deployment or a war or conflict or that type of thing. So I got real smart, as some of us do, right? I got real smart, and I said, well, guess what? I'm going to sign up for Hawaii because nobody in Hawaii goes anywhere, or so I thought. So I'm going scuba diving and boating and enjoying the beach. So I thought, and I did for about a year. And then about a year into it, we had this big meeting, and guess what? That's right, you're going to Afghanistan. So that's where all this came into play. And just like with many things in our life, and I think this goes into our life story, we are on the battlefield. We are fighting a fight, and we fight a good fight. It may be with our family, it may be with friends, it may be with co-workers, it may be with whomever. But my whole point I hope to come across, and one of my big points, is to be more than a conqueror and know your enemy is crafty. The enemy uses people that we love. The enemy uses words and things that we think would never come out of someone's mouth, right? So we see these things happening, and we're not really sure, you know, a lot of times we don't really understand we're on this battlefield. We don't really understand where that came from. But the scriptures clearly tell us that it's not the flesh, it's not the person, it's what's in that person or what was a part of that person, or sometimes even the demonics, if you will, that whisper in and say, hey, tell this guy he's a dummy. And then, well, you big dummy, hey, you know, and then it becomes a big deal. So with all that being said, I think this goes together truly in when you're on the battlefield, just like the brother said, when we go out there, you run into hundreds, millions, whomever, or whoever it shall be. And in some cases, also, we've been a part of community things in Arkansas and stuff as that as well. And you also have to be very discernful with that, because I've seen people spend 7 to 8 years being miserable in these battlefield situations, and when they do it wrong as opposed to doing it right. Now, a lot of times we do stuff wrong, and it's what I call the bonk on the head, right? It's you do it wrong, you learn the hard way, but we don't want to do that. And how do we keep from doing that? Well, hopefully within this bit of time, I can help and help myself. It's not just me telling you, it's me also telling me, even though I've been through all of this, sometimes I have to go back and say, well, why is this going on? Why did this happen? Why is this happening to me, if you will, right? With all that being said, I'm going to play a few things here and then go to scriptures. And then I have another little video that I would like you to watch. This is the 3-7 Never Broken. This is what we did, or what I did. I was a part of the field artillery. And as you see, that is not the howitzer self-propelled. That is the howitzer that can be picked up by helicopter. That is a howitzer that can be dropped off anywhere, right? So that's not what I was used to. In Desert Storm, I was a private. I was, you know, just took the orders, which is a different way of battle. It's a different whole aspect. But also in Desert Storm, I was a battalion level, which means I had 1,000 people under me, which means boots on the ground. There was 1,000 people between me and the enemy. When I come to Afghanistan and my great signing up for 6 years in the Army to be a part of that Hawaii trip, that's where I ended up. Now, again, sometimes we end up in places we did not intend to. I did not intend to that, and I do not promote, and when the video even says that, violence and these things. But if we look at scriptures, we have an enemy. Yahweh has the enemy, right? Of course, he can destroy him. He can do anything, anytime, but all this plays out for a reason. And I believe it plays out as we learn, as we grow, as we get into these situations. And as I said, when I was in Desert Storm, I was a private. I just took orders, did what I was told. As a staff sergeant, promotable, going to Afghanistan, now people's lives are in my hand. Now people are looking at me as what they should do. Now, the aspect of that is very, very detrimental for me, you know, to have other soldiers, especially people who have family members and have kids and have young children, and they may not go home. So my aspect of that was, you do what I tell you and you'll go home. The only way you're going to die is if you do something dumb. And I believe that, and it wasn't because of me. It's not a haughty me, because as I said, I carried the scriptures with me, and I carried it in my pocket. I used to carry a New Testament in my pocket. And I believed, even though I didn't know his name, I didn't know the Sabbath, I didn't know, you know, a lot of things back then, but I believed that he would carry me through and that he would help me through these things, especially when these people come to me with their problems and you know, would tell me what was going on with their life and tell me what was going on with their family and all these things. So in Romans 8:37, know in all these things that we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. We are more than conquerors, I believe, on this battlefield of life, that we should be able to conquer most, I'm not going to say every, because some things I believe we have to be knocked down a latch. We have to be knocked down a little bit. And in my case, I'll just tell you to humble. Sometimes when you get so far up, who can tell you this? You know it, you've done this, you've done that. And if you're not careful, you forget what you're even doing. You forget how humbling and how what Yeshua came to do and why he did the things and why he healed them. I believe he said he had such a humble heart of coming to these people and to talk with them. And I mean, just think of how the Pharisees and how they spoke to him and the things that he could have quick and easily came back to humble them and make them be on their knees crying. But instead, he just let them be what they was. If you're not going to listen to me, if you're not going to listen to the Torah, if you're not going to listen to Abraham, then you don't know. And I think that's another humbling thing that we need to realize as well. When we come to these things and we come to these problems, we can only do what we can do. I know me personally, I want people to do the right thing, and it pains me to see them do the wrong thing and so on and so forth. But also, I believe that's a part of my background here. Like I said, with my soldiers, I would tell them what to do and they would do it. So it wasn't a problem of disobedience or anything along that line. And I clearly see that when I disobey Yahweh, I have to pay for it. When others disobey, and it's scripture. Again, it's not the person, it's not the prophet that's sitting there, but it can be. And I think that's what's missing so much in the world, that when we come together and we combine together, that what a wonderful thing we can do. In a 3 to 5 man team, like I say, in the Desert Storm, it was 1,000 people in front of me. In Afghanistan, it was go pick a guy and have him come with you. Not all the time. I had 3 to 5 people working with me, but on certain occasions, and one in particular that I wanted to show you here as well. One in particular is we went to a place where they had killed 32 Marines. They slaughtered them, to be honest, and it was called TK. And we went there and we got told it was one of those secret missions, right? It was something that you're going to go and do and deal with it, right? So one of the captains came and told me to pick who I wanted to go. So I was like, well, should I pick somebody I don't like? Because it sounds like a suicide mission. So should I pick my worst soldier that I don't like or my best soldier? Because it sounds like a suicide mission, right? Again, they killed 32 Marines there. There was 18 of us that they were sending. Don't make sense. But I did what I had to do. I picked one of my best soldiers, one of the newer ones that I called a warrior after that, because he was, he just did what he was told. He did exactly what he was told, and he used my experience in between all this. Now, again, I'm not trying to be haughty or say anything about me. All praise to Yahweh, because I would not be here, obviously, if it wasn't for his guiding hand and his help and many prayers. And we also, again, we believe. We may not believe what I believe now. I didn't have that education and that knowledge, but we believed the Bible. We believed that there was a power going with us into this, that so much so that one of my soldiers handed me a letter, and he wanted me, and in that situation, it's not a letter of, hey, when I get out of here, I'm going to order pizza and ice cream. You know what the letter is. You know what's going on. You know what's going to happen there. And I'm going to try to play this. And again, the footage of this is basically Afghanistan. It's a real mission. It's really what's going on the ground. And this, again, is not meant to glorify or to say war is the way to go or to get anybody to join any armed forces, especially in today's world. But it's information about the military conflict. And again, I believe it directly coincides with today and us fighting against our enemy, our enemies. And I mean, not the flesh type, right? So with this going on, we can clearly see what's happening. And you can see what's going on here. I'm just going to let it play for a second so you can get kind of what the gist of it is. So I'm going to mute it though and let that go. What I want to bring home when I'm talking about this again is we are in this battle and we are fighting, if you will, for our lives, for our eternal life, for our children, for our grandchildren. And I truly believe that what we do today is what our tomorrow is. And I believe he lets us make these decisions as to what we would do, right? When you have soldiers, instead of having a soldier that don't know anything, you teach the soldier what you know. That way he can go and do hopefully better than what you've done. Now, here's what I'm saying is being more than a conqueror, because the enemy is crafty. And in this combat situation, in Desert Storm, we knew everybody north of us is the enemy. Everybody with this kind of uniform, a T-72 tank, a MiG, whatever, they are the enemy. In this type of battle, as you can see in some of these things going on, you can't see the enemy. You don't know where the enemy's at. You hear gunfire, you have to identify and, if you will, discern and identify where that enemy's coming from. I would submit to you that sometimes in life, we have to do the exact same thing. We don't know where that comment, where this came from, where this is coming from. Where is it? What is it? Is it good or bad? Because sometimes, just like I mentioned, in Arkansas, this guy's selling land, they're buying acres, and, you know, some people are doing good, some people are doing terrible. Some people, I know that all they ever had for 7 years was a tent, and the land never produced anything. Nobody showed up. It didn't become a community or anything, while others are having blown out communities. Why is that? Why is one person thriving and the other person is not? Well, when you go there and you have people praying and people praying about it, that's what matters. Because I was actually one who went there and there was a dry creek, and it just struck me that it's dry land, nothing's going to become of it. So I told the people there that, you know, from what I see, what I discern is it's dry. There's no water. There's nothing. It's just dry. I said what I was compelled to say. 7, 8 years later, they finally got rid of the land. Nothing became of it. Some of the other people, Cheryl and that group, they had people come there. They had people that came there for Sabbath. I mean, it became a thriving thing, you know, until one of the elders actually passed on. He got to see many, many things that he thought he would never see happen, and see people come to his land from other states. So the whole point here is what I'm trying to make again is what we do as being that conqueror, and not to have the haughtiness and not to have the, you know, to have the humility of Moshe, if you will, to have the humility of knowing what we're doing and how to do it. So going on here, I'm not trying to go in too much to it, but I love to put the scriptures in. Finally, being strong in Yahweh, in the strength of his might. Again, I attribute all these stories to Yahweh being with me, the Ruach being with me, that without these decisions, and I prayed, don't let any of these soldiers die under me. Don't, you know, that's one thing I didn't ever want to live with. I didn't ever want to make a wrong decision and have someone die, and then I have to think every night before I go to bed, what if? So in these cases, a lot of this action happened. We would get ambushed. We would go to these places that you see here, and before we could make it there, we would get ambushed. We would just get attacked. And again, you know, it's like, where, what is going on? In this situation that I went to TK, they shot down a C-130. They, like I said, they killed a bunch of Marines and they sent us there. in the battle that went on to this here, we ran out of ammo, we ran out of water, we ran out of basically everything. And I was calling back to Cabal and telling them, we need, they're like, sit rep. I'm like, well, we need ammo, we need water, we need this, we need that. And of course they wouldn't deliver anything because guess what? We was in a hot zone. We was in combat. We can't fly anything to you. So it got to the point after about 5 hours of this intense battle that I just blatantly said the obvious. Either send me some body bags or send me some ammo, because one or the other is going to happen here in a few hours. We're down to illumination rounds with these guns. There's 18 of us, and there was 1,000 in the mountains, these mountains that you see up there. There was 1,000, over 1,000 enemy against 18 people. So, when you start thinking about the odds and what's going on and the sit reps that's coming in, you're thinking, this is the end of this day, right? This is the end of this story. Why did I ever sign up for this? All these things that start going through your mind. But then, of course, what do? You start praying, because if man can't help you, Yahweh can, right? If man can't change this situation, then why am I here? Did I just come here to die? Is this what's really going on? Is this what's a part of my life? And within that, then things start happening. They started flying by and dropping crates of water, and they started dropping off ammo that we had to go and get. So with all this happening, there's hope, there's faith. They sent in, as you see here, they sent in some helicopters, which they called the Iron Dragons. That was their words. We had an Air Force guy who had an interpreter and had a phone set up that he could hear them speaking. While this battle's going on, the enemy's talking on cell phones and talking about us. And one of the things they said here was, the Iron Dragons are coming, get down. Well, they have tunnels in these mountains, and they just would get down. And we would watch these helicopters come in and just pound this mountainside and blow it, look like, to bits, right? You see what's happening? It just looks like, well, there ain't nothing left up there. We're done. And then as soon as they would run out of fuel, they would leave. And guess what? The enemy would start shooting again. It's like, wow. The enemy, our adversary, is crafty, very crafty. It's so much to sometimes we don't understand what's going on. 1 John 5:4. For everyone who has been born of Elohim overcomes the world. And this is the victory that overcomes the world, our faith. So our faith is what comes into fact. And just like I said here, when all else fails and you start praying and you start asking the Father to help you in these things, and then you see something happen, because our faith is not just something we don't see, right? It's not just something that we can't get a hold of. It may be, it is the things that we have hope of seeing, but we know from the things of past that he has heard our prayer, right? So it's not a blind faith. It's not a blind, I'm going to pray for something and nothing ever happens. When we see things happen, when we see Brother Jackson come out of that, when we see this land coming, when we see something in your family that you thought could never happen, it's impossible, but Yahweh does it through his Ruach and through talking to people and through whatever his way of doing it is. A lot of times, we just kind of get in the way, I would say, in some aspects. We get in the way if we're not careful, because what I want, right? If I would have got into this, I don't want to be here, right? If I would have got into that mode, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of that. And, they're talking here about the ambush that's going on, and they can't even get to where they were supposed to be. So the logistics and the ammunition, the things that they need to go and fight the battle they need to fight, they can't get there, right? So they're going to have to be resupplied and all these things to even go to the battle that they're supposed to be at. And many times I believe that's what we see as well. We run into this and we're looking for this battle and we're set for this battle and we're ready for this to go on. And somehow we get knocked sideways, right? We get knocked to our side, to our face, and we say, wow, I was looking for this battle up here. I was looking for this to happen. I was looking for that to happen. And it does rattle you. That soldier that I picked to take with me, he was really there when I told him, and I prayed and I told him, I said, look, we're going to go into this battle and this does not look good. It doesn't look happy. It's not, hey, we're going to get some fame out of this one, right? This is something that they don't really probably expect everybody to come home on. But we pray, we put our faith in, and we believe that we're going to do the best we can. Within that, of course, we got rattled. We got this, we got that. We got into a whole town. Now, tell me this isn't protection. A whole town. Did you see these towns are towns? They're just in the middle of nowhere. You come up out of nowhere on your way to this, that, and the other. This whole town ambushed us. There's 18 guys, and this time we didn't even have our howitzer, right? Because they would fly them in and fly them out. So they would drop them off, we would hook them up, and they would take them away. We didn't even have a howitzer. All we had was just our weapons at this time, and this whole town just attacked us. They was going every which way. And 18 people, you do the math, against a whole town isn't really a good thing, right? So I'm running up and down and trying to find out what's going on, trying to see what we could do, find my radio, call back and let them know. Run into this Air Force guy. The Air Force are something different, really. They really are. He's got a TACSAT communication thing. And I'm like, hey, what do you got in the air? What have you got around here? And he's like, oh, we got a plane that's in Kabul. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's like a long ways from here. And so he calls him. This plane was there in 60 seconds. And this plane looked like, to me, a transformer. I don't know if it was a heat of the moment or what all was happening, but it came down and he swooped by us. And the plane, I thought, was actually going to transform and stomp on the town, is what it looked like to me. And this, again, maybe that was water deformation or something, but he talked to the plane and they wanted us to leave. And the plane was like, look, you got to get out of there. You got to be, so far away. You need to be 2 to 4 minutes away for the percussion, because he had a Moab bomb on his plane and he'd never been dropped in Afghanistan ever. So we was like, hey, you know what? Drop it anyway, because this ain't going to last long either, right? We're going to have to, one way or the other, we want this to end. So he dropped it, and as soon as he come by, we jumped in the vehicles and started getting away. And the percussion, you could feel it. And it was probably a couple miles away that we got away from it. And it destroyed that whole town. And you can look that up. It was at that time the biggest bomb ever dropped in Afghanistan. And those things, again, 18 men, and some of them was hiding. Some of these gunners and stuff, they was hiding behind Humvees. They was scared. This was it. That was the end of it. So with all that being said, we put our trust in Yahweh, and we know who our strength and where we get that from. John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Again, it's over, right? This battle's done. They was right. Our 18 guys were through. Even though we've been through all this, that's it. But out of nowhere, they have this plane flying that can do much more than we can. And even with our guns, even if we had our guns, it probably would have been worse, because we would have used those two, which we could only take 2 at this battle. Those 2 guns wouldn't have done much to that town without taking 3 days. So even if it would have been another situation, that would have just have been a horrific thing. And again, we would have run out of ammo and all these problems that come into it. But when we trust in Yahweh and all these people, what does that got to do with anything? Well, I believe Himes, the guy that I picked to go with me, I believe that these people that seen these things happen, that they seen I did carry a Bible, I did believe, I did pray, I did put faith into what I said. And I told them before this happened, I said, you're not going home until we go home. The only way you'll go home is doing something stupid. That's the only way you're going home. So I'm not going to write your letter. And I even went as far, I'll just be truthful. I even went as far as telling them, if I'm writing your mama or your wife a letter, what I'm going to tell them is they died of stupidity. So you don't want me to send a letter to your mom or to your wife telling them that, right? No, sir, no. Well, then don't make me write that letter. But I had to give that emphasis into, we believe we're here for a reason, and we believe we're doing something, and it becomes more than, the 9/11, this and this and this and this. It becomes more of, this is my brother, or this is like my son. And I don't want them to pass away. I don't want them to go away. I don't want something to happen to them. And I'm praying for them to come through this. And I'm praying for them that when they get older, and these people now know what's going on. Now, here's one of the last ones, that what the good old military does for you, if you're, they send you to places like this and give you a little board, and you find your way at 2 a.m. Well, believe it or not, you can be as trained a non-commissioned officer as you think you are, and as many battles as you think that you can handle. And even in these situations, you are, you are going, oh, Father, help me. Because in these situations, again, it's hard to find something. It ain't like, hey, you know where McDonald's is? Take a ride at McDonald's. It's, hey, do you know where that sandbar is? No, I don't, because I've never been at that spot in the desert at 2 a.m. And I've never had people shoot at me that spot in the desert at 2 a.m. So, yeah, it's not a fun job, right? But I truly hope that those ones that was with me through these things, that they could see, and some of them, like Shane, know me. Some of them have been a part of the Yahad that's come on, and they know who I am, and they have seen the difference between now and then. And yes, I believe then, but I truly believe now. I truly believe I can see, right? At that point, when you're going, I hope I make it. Please help me make it. Please, and you're begging the Father that these people don't die, that these people don't, leave their family at 19 years old, and you do have to write a letter, and you do have to contradict what you just said, and you do have to say that was a war hero instead of what you said. Now that faith is in place. Now I know I was speaking truth. Now I know that all that faith and all that was a part of what he had said and what he wanted to do. Now, again, I'm not promoting the whole, army or military or any of that type of things here. But what I am promoting is, when Yahweh says it, it's so. When he says do these things, when he is behind you, it is so. But I'm afraid, I don't know what's going on here. Pop-ups. Anyway. Now, what we also have to understand here is, just like we see John 8:44, you are the father, your devil. We know that these people are out there. We see these things going on. And you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of the lies. So we have to discern what is the truth and what is the lies. And when we're trying to have community, when we're trying to have family, when we're trying to have harmony, when we're trying to have all these things and be the true light of the world, The enemy's trying to stop that at all costs. He's trying on this battlefield to get your mother, your brother, your sister, someone to say something that either sets their mindset is to, you're the bad guy, you're the bad woman, or just the opposite, right? Vice versa, whichever it may be. We have to understand, 2 Corinthians tells us, no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. He knows what's going on. He knows that if we would combine together, again, what 3 to 18 people could do, and I truly believed, and I said it, I believe that 18 of us could have took all of Afghanistan. Afghanistan, in reality, is only about as big as Texas. I believed in a month we could take that whole country and put it into what it needed to be. Because what we did, especially in TK and some of these places, we would go through all this and then leave. We wouldn't so much as put up a flag and say, hey, we was here. We would leave. Well, when you leave, even those people that are not there, the people that wanted to do harm or wanted to do things, could come back and take that land back over. So in perspective, when we go to these places, when we do Sukkot, when we have these feast days, I believe we're putting something down there saying, this is the land of Yahweh. This is, so saith Yahweh. This is the Ruach, and that we can keep that land. And I think that's what we should be doing with these assemblies and with these communities and all these things that we're doing. We are pushing the enemy back. We are restoring what should be, right? Now, if the enemy doesn't like it, oh well, he's not going to like it. He shouldn't like it, right? Because we're destroying his kingdom as opposed to him destroying what is Yahweh's. But if we are a part of that, and I believe we are, I believe we are truly such a part of it, I think that's what we're missing, is we are on this battlefield of life, and we are trying to restore, or we should know we're trying to restore our family, our friends, all these people that are trying to do something. And, not to put him on the spot, but the one that I talked about earlier, that he wanted to be immersed. He wanted to be a part of this. He was a part of the Yahad. He talked. He was a part of our conversations. And I told him and I warned him, you are putting yourself on the battlefield. You remember when we did these things and what happened? You remember when you go to this place, you go to this town, what happens? You're now a target. And since you're wearing the Ruach, that's all you need, right? You don't have to wear the target. The enemy knows who and where you are. Trust, you have to know that. And I think that's what we forget when we walk around this thing called life. We forget the enemy doesn't like you. The enemy doesn't want you to do anything. He probably hopes that you would just drop over and he could be done with you, because the rest of the crowd ain't fighting. The rest of the crowd, they're just like, hey, we're looking for somebody to tell us, good old boy, right? That what I'm doing is great. And a lot of times on the battlefield, we need to have brothers and sisters that's saying, hey, you know what? You need to up your game. Hey, I know you might be tired. I know you might be upset, but we're getting ready to go through something, and we need some prayer. We need some prayer on all sides, right? We need some real prayer, because I want this to happen. And if we could put ourselves in that foxhole, right? If we would commit and say, look, I'm going to pray for this sister and for what is right. Because how do we know what's right? How do we know what, it might be Fred or Susan, or it might be the wrong person, the wrong decision, or it could be the right decision. And many times in this, again, what I have learned, when you pray and you just do what you're compelled, not what your emotions want to do. Like I said, I've seen grown men, staff sergeants, if you will, go and hide behind Humvees while this is happening. And that was their guys, right? They was running. They don't want to die. They don't want a part of that, which is understandable. But on this battlefield, we have to know that, just like we see in scriptures, we know the enemy's there, and oh, death, where's thy sting? If I get taken out in the process, then I sure hope that one of these disciples, one of the Essenes, one of these people that I've been praying for and teaching and helping will step up and do more than I could ever do. That they would have more of the Ruach, they would know Yeshua, that he would be beside them even more than I could be, right? So I really pray that we can understand this, and I really hope this has helped out. I'll just do a couple more verses here and be quiet. You probably had enough, right? But I am afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his craftiness, your minds will be led astray from the simplicity and purity of the devotion to the Mashiach. I think that has a whole sermon in itself, if you will, that sometimes we make the simplicity of the Messiah the focus, and we forget about the battle. We forget of what we must do. We forget that some people are not there yet, right? We are fighting, we are restoring, if you will, the paved roads that they could walk down, right? Some of these roads, there's a whole nother sermon for another time, but some of these roads, we would go in and have the Army engineers come in and pave a road, and I'd be like, what for? What are you doing this? You know, they would pave a road, and as soon as everything, it was like a target, and they would blow it up and put a landmine and dig a hole in it. And, you know, it would be 2 or 3 days, this nice, beautiful road out in the middle of nowhere would have a big old chunk, you know, a big old hole blown into it that if you was walking at night, you'd break your leg. You know, it's like, what? Think about what you're doing. You're making a target. But sometimes I think if we're not careful, we don't understand that. We don't are zealous, which is great, and what we're doing, but we don't understand the battle. We want people to know so much too quick. It's like that fire hose thing, right? It's like, I'm going to turn on the fire hose and give you all everything I know. And if we would have learned that, if I would have learned that, my head would hurt, right? I'd be like, wait a minute, slow down. The feast is what, and the Sabbath is what, and his name is this, and the Messiah. And what about Torah? You know, before you get 3 or 4 things, it's like, hold on now. Let me see what's going on. And with all that going on and everything else going on, and then you turn on some media and the world's come to the end yesterday type stuff, right? But to restore things and to not lose the hope. And that is what I hope we can do for each other. That's what we can do for those ones like my brothers that are out there, that some of them, they believe. Some of them are true believers. Some are not. Some are still stuck into why and how come and the things and the guilt. And, you know, they're more stuck on the other side and what happened. And we can't do that, right? The enemy is the enemy. The enemy is always going to be the enemy. And what the enemy does is what the enemy does. But I believe a lot of these veterans, a lot of these people, what's wrong with them, they call it PTSD or whatever they call it, that I think the real thing is the guilt of they went and did what their country asked of them to do, and they don't understand why. They don't understand the whole concept of it. And I believe that we tell the Father, forgive me if I did anything wrong, forgive me of these things. And just as we seen what David did, that I hope it was the right thing. I hope all this helped. And if nothing else, I focus on those people that was with me, those 3 to 5 men that was with me, that hopefully seen that Yah was with me, that Yeshua was there, that all these things was not just a happy chance. We didn't call cabal who didn't care 500-600 miles away. They could care less, right? They already thought we was done for anyway. But when you call them and you get a hold of the right person after 5-6 hours, and then something actually changes. In closing, Ephesians 6:11, put on the full armor of Yahweh so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. And again, there is so many schemes, so many things, so much nonsense going on in today's world that it's almost astounding. You know, I can hardly even watch some of this social media stuff and some of the circus things that's going on anymore, some of the antics. But again, when we focus on what is around us and what our battle is, as opposed to that distraction. Well, what's happening here? What's happening there? And if it is in Haiti, then yes, it is connected to us. If it is Brother Finney, then it is connected to us. But if it's somewhere else that we have no real control over, sometimes our best battle is, hey, I'm going to try to show my mom, my brother, my sister, my faith, what I can show them, and not getting aggravated, not getting upset, not saying all these harsh things that the world says, and to keep that peace, to keep that shalom when everything else seems like it's falling apart. And trust me, it's hard. It's hard to watch your soldiers almost in tears. It's hard to watch people that are, passing on, and to try to tell them, hey, you've done all you could. We've done all you could. And, it's just that way. It's just time for you. You're going to beat me there. What I've learned with Brother Dennis is he beat me there, right? He's not worrying about this. He don't have to worry about all these things. He don't have to worry about fighting and fighting with this and going on with all these distractions and the schemes of the devil anymore, right? So I hope this is edified. I hope it has helped. I hope it made sense. I ask that you would be blessed, and I pray that it has shown you more courageous things and more things to do for the Creator, and that we could come together and be a unity, to be true brothers and sisters, and pray for each other and help each other, and to know that I need you, right? I need your prayers, and I want to pray for you, and I want the Father to do miraculous things in your life so we can come back next week and hear all these great miracles and all these great things that He's done for you. So I really pray that, again, it's edified you and helped you in all these things. Shalom. Yahweh bless you all. Yahweh's love.